Zara pressed herself against the cold metal wall of the cargo bay, her orange skin dimming to near invisibility as her species' natural camouflage abilities kicked in. Her blonde hair, typically vibrant, dulled to match the shadows. She held her breath, a unnecessary precaution since Voltorians could control their respiratory patterns, and watched the human security guard patrol past her hiding spot. He was massive by human standards, easily 6.5 feet tall with shoulders that seemed to fill the corridor. But Zara wasn't impressed. She'd done her research. Humans were weak, fragile. Their single heart, their inefficient respiratory system, their pathetic muscle density, they were barely worth consideration as a security threat. The real threat was their technology. The laser grids, motion sensors, and AI surveillance systems that protected the high-value cargo on this transport ship. But Zara was the best thief in 3 sectors. She'd bypassed security designed by species far more advanced than humans. This job would be easy. She just had to wait for the guard to pass, disable the quantum lock on the cargo container holding Terran artifacts worth millions of credits, and slip away before anyone noticed. Simple. The guard paused. Zara's heart's Voltorians had too skipped a beat. Had he heard something? Impossible. She'd made no sound. Her camouflage was perfect. "There was no way. I know you're there," the guard said casually, not even turning around. "You've got 3 seconds to come out before I make this difficult." 1. Zara's mind raced. This had to be a bluff. Humans couldn't see through Voltorian camouflage. Their visual spectrum was too limited. 2. She calculated her options. She could try to slip past him while he was distracted or make a run for the ventilation system, or 3. Your choice, lady. In one fluid motion, the guard spun around and grabbed exactly where Zara was hiding. His hand closed around her wrist with crushing force, and suddenly her camouflage failed, her orange skin blazing back to its natural color from the shock. "How did you?" Zara gasped. The guard grinned. "You smell like jasmine flowers, nice perfume but not great for stealth. Also, you left thermal footprints on the deck plating, and your breathing might be controlled, but it still creates air displacement. Humans might not have fancy color-changing skin, but we've got other ways of tracking people." Zara tried to wrench her arm free. She was strong. Voltorian musculature was denser than human. She should have been able to break his grip easily. She couldn't. The human's fingers were like steel bands. He wasn't even straining. "Don't bother," he said almost apologetically. "I've dealt with Voltorian thieves before. I know your species thinks you're stronger than humans because of the muscle density thing. But you're working with limited data. Human muscle might be less dense, but we've got leverage, bone structure, and something you don't: stubborn, mean streak. We evolved from being persistence hunters." He started walking, pulling Zara along like she weighed nothing. She dug her heels in, trying to resist, but it was like trying to stop a freight train. "Let me go," she demanded, dropping any pretense of stealth. "You're hurting me." The guard immediately loosened his grip, though he didn't release her. "Sorry." "Didn't mean to. Look, you seem young. First major heist. Let me give you some advice. Stop believing the propaganda about humans being weak. That rumor was started by species who didn't want to admit we kicked their asses in the contact wars." "That's ridiculous," Zara spat. "Everyone knows humans won those wars through technology and numbers, not physical capability. Your species is fragile. You have thin skin, weak bones, terrible sensory capabilities. And yet I caught you in about 30 seconds, the guard pointed out. "Name's Jack Chen, by the way. Since we're going to be spending time together until the captain decides what to do with you, might as well be civil." They reached the security office, and Jack guided Zara into a holding cell, gentle but firm, like handling something dangerous that he didn't want to break. As the energy barrier hummed to life, Zara finally got a good look at him. He was older than she'd initially thought, maybe late 40s by human reckoning, with gray streaking his dark hair. His face was weathered with scars that suggested he'd lived a harder life than most cargo ship guards, But what struck her most were his eyes, brown, calm, and completely unafraid. "The captain will be here in a few hours," Jack said, settling into a chair across from her cell. "Until then, you want some water." "Something to eat. I want you to let me go," Zara said coldly. "Not happening, but I can get you water anyway. Dehydration's no joke, even for would-be thieves." Despite herself, Zara accepted the water. Her mouths were dry. Volturians had two, one for breathing and one for speaking and eating, and the adrenaline was wearing off. As she drank, she studied Jack, trying to understand how she'd so badly miscalculated. "How did you really catch me?" she asked finally. "I've used that camouflage technique on dozens of species. It's never failed before." Jack leaned back, his posture relaxed. "Told you, smell thermal signature, air displacement. But also you made a classic mistake. You assumed human weakness meant human inability. We might not have the best vision or hearing or smell individually, but our brains are really good at integrating multiple sensory inputs and detecting anomalies. I couldn't see you, but I could feel that something was off. The air pressure in the corridor was wrong. There was a faint scent that shouldn't be there. My instincts said threat, so I acted." "Instincts," Zara repeated skeptically. "Millions of years of evolution," Jack said with a shrug. "Humans survived by being able to track prey across continents, to notice tiny details that meant the difference between eating and being eaten. We're pattern recognition specialists. Your camouflage might fool eyes, but it doesn't fool the whole sensory package." Zara processed this. In all her research about humans, she'd focused on their physical limitations, not their capabilities. The databases said humans were weak, slow, easy targets. Compared to what? A Krillian war cast? Sure, we're weaker. Compared to a Zendari speed fighter? Yeah, we're slower, but weak is relative. Humans can run for hours without stopping, not fast, but persistent. We can survive injuries that would kill most species. We can eat almost anything, adapt to almost any environment, and we're really good at solving problems through sheer bloody-minded determination. He stood and paced a bit, warming to his subject. "You know what the other species don't like to admit? Humans are scary. Not because we're the strongest or the fastest, but because we don't quit. You hurt a Volturian, they'll try to escape. You hurt a human, there's a decent chance they'll hunt you down out of pure spite. We're vindictive, stubborn, and we hold grudges like other species hold festivals." "You're trying to intimidate me," Zara said, but her voice was less certain. "I'm trying to educate you," Jack corrected. "Because you're young and talented enough to break onto a secure ship, and I'd hate to see you get killed because you believed bad intel." Over the next hours, as they waited for the captain, Jack and Zara talked. He told her about his career in private security, about fighting in the contact wars as a young man, about the things he'd seen humans survive that should have been impossible. "We had a guy in my unit, Martinez, took a plasma bolt that went clean through his abdomen. By all medical logic, he should have died in minutes. Instead, he stabilized his own wound with an emergency gel, walked 3 kilometers to extraction, and survived surgery. The docs said his body just refused to die. That's a human thing. We're too stubborn to accept death gracefully." Zara found herself fascinated despite her situation. "But your species must have weaknesses. Every species does." "Sure," Jack agreed. "We're not great with extreme temperatures compared to some species. Our immune systems can be overwhelmed by novel pathogens. We need sleep, which is a tactical vulnerability. And psychologically, we're a mess: anxiety, depression, PTSD. We feel things intensely, which can be a weakness." "Then how?" "Because we turned our weaknesses into strengths," Jack interrupted. "Bad immune system. We invented vaccines and antibiotics. Need sleep. We developed stimulants and rotating watch schedules. Psychological issues. We created support systems and therapy and the whole concept of leave no one behind. Humans don't overcome weakness by being strong. We overcome it by being clever and refusing to give up." The captain arrived eventually, a stern Tellarian woman named Kess who looked at Zara with disappointment rather than anger. You're Zara Ven, I've heard of you, the ghost of the trade routes, impressive reputation for someone so young. I want a lawyer, Zara said immediately. You'll get one, but first let's talk about what you were trying to steal. Captain Kess pulled up a holographic display showing the cargo container Zara had been targeting. Terran artifacts, yes. Items from Earth's ancient history being transported to a museum. Do you know what they are? Zara shrugged. I was hired to steal them. I don't ask questions about the cargo. You should start, Kess said sharply. Those artifacts include human remains, ancient humans who were buried with honor thousands of years ago. Their descendants want them returned home. You are going to steal corpses, Ms. Ven. That's not just theft, that's desecration. For the first time, Zara felt genuine shame. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You just assumed humans were easy targets with valuable cargo. Kess sat down across from the cell. Here's what's going to happen. We're 2 days from our destination. You'll remain in custody until then, at which point we'll turn you over to the authorities. Given your age and the fact that you didn't actually succeed in stealing anything, you'll probably get a light sentence, maybe community service, maybe a fine. Or, Jack interjected, you could work off your debt directly. Both Kess and Zara stared at him. What are you suggesting? Kess asked carefully. Jack looked at Zara. You're talented, good enough to get onto this ship despite our security, but you're using those talents to steal from people. What if you use them to help people instead? Help how? Zara asked suspiciously. The museum these artifacts are going to, it's got terrible security. I know because I consulted on the original design and they ignored half my recommendations. Someone with your skills could break in easily, which means others can too. What if you helped them upgrade their systems, taught them how to think like a thief so they could protect against thieves? Kess was nodding slowly. That's actually not a terrible idea. Ms. Ven, how would you feel about legitimate work, using your abilities legally? Zara wanted to refuse on principle. But something about Jack's earnest expression, about the way he'd caught her so easily and then treated her with respect rather than contempt, made her hesitate. Why would you want to help me? I tried to rob your ship. Because everyone deserves a second chance, Jack said simply. And because wasting talent is a sin, you're good at what you do. Be good at something that helps instead of hurts. Zara spent the next 2 days in custody, but it was surprisingly pleasant custody. Jack brought her meals, talked to her about security systems and human history, even showed her some basic self-defense techniques that humans used. You're stronger than me on paper, Jack explained during one demonstration. But strength isn't everything in a fight. Watch if you try to punch me here. He guided her through the motion. I can use your momentum against you, redirect your force, and put you on the ground without matching your strength directly. Humans are really good at fighting smarter, not harder. This is humiliating, Zara muttered as she found herself on the floor for the 3rd time. This is educational, Jack corrected with a grin. Pride's expensive. Better to be humiliated in practice than killed in a real situation. By the time they reached their destination, Zara had made a decision. She agreed to Captain Kess's proposal, work with the museum to upgrade their security, use her skills legally, and in return the theft charges would be reduced to a warning. But the real surprise came when Jack offered her something else. I'm starting a security consulting firm, he said as they prepared to part ways. Helping organizations protect themselves from people like you used to be. I could use someone with your perspective, someone who knows how thieves think. Interested. You want to hire me? Zara couldn't quite believe it. After I tried to rob your ship. Because you tried to rob my ship, Jack corrected. You got further than anyone else has in 5 years. That tells me you're exactly the kind of person who'd be good at this work. Plus, I figure I owe you. Owe me what? for reminding me why I got into this business in the first place, not to catch bad guys but to help people. You could have been just another arrest, another statistic. Instead, you get to be a success story. That's worth something." Zara studied his face, looking for deception or ulterior motives. She found none, just honest warmth and a genuine desire to help. It was so typically human, this bizarre combination of pragmatism and compassion, of seeing potential where others saw only problems. "I'll think about it," she said finally. She thought about it for approximately 6 hours before accepting. Working with Jack was nothing like Zara expected. He was demanding but fair, pushing her to use her abilities in new ways. He taught her about human security psychology, about how humans thought about protection and threat assessment. More importantly, he treated her as a colleague, not a criminal on probation. Their first major job together was securing a refugee center on a border station. The place was overflowing with beings fleeing the conflicts in the outer sectors, and the security was a joke. Zara walked through it once and identified 17 vulnerabilities. "This is impossible to defend," she told Jack. "There are too many access points, not enough personnel, and the technology is decades old." "So we get creative," Jack said. "Come on, use that devious brain of yours. If you can't make it impenetrable, make it unpredictable. Thieves and attackers rely on patterns. Break the patterns." They spent 3 weeks redesigning the security system using mostly free or cheap solutions. Rotating patrol routes that never repeated. Dummy cameras mixed with real ones so nobody could tell which were which. Simple physical barriers that channeled traffic into controlled areas. And what Jack called human unpredictability, training the staff to trust their instincts, to notice anomalies, to think like Jack had when he'd caught Zara. The night before they finished, Zara and Jack sat in the refugee center's common area, watching families sleep peacefully. "I used to think humans were weak," Zara said quietly. "That your species survived through luck and technology, not capability. And now I think humans are terrifying, not because you're strong, you're not really, but because you refuse to accept limitations. You get hurt and come back angrier. You face impossible odds and find impossible solutions. You turn enemies into allies and problems into opportunities. That's not weakness, that's something much more dangerous." Jack smiled. "It took me 47 years to figure that out about my own species. You got there in 3 weeks, you're a quick study." "I had a good teacher," Zara admitted. "One who caught me when I thought I was uncatchable, then showed me there were better things to do with my skills than stealing." "You caught yourself," Jack said. "I just pointed you in a better direction. Everything after that, that was all you." 3 years later, Zara stood in front of an audience of security professionals from a dozen species, giving a lecture on adaptive security systems. Jack sat in the front row looking proud. "The biggest mistake any species makes," Zara told the audience, "is underestimating others. I thought humans were weak because I looked at physical capabilities instead of total capabilities. I learned the hard way that humans are strong in ways that don't show up on a scanner. They're resilient, adaptable, and absolutely relentless when protecting what matters to them." After the lecture, a young Voltorian approached her, orange-skinned, blonde-haired, probably planning their first heist. "Ms. Venn, I heard you used to be a thief. Is that true?" "It is," Zara confirmed. "How did you get caught? You're supposed to be legendary." Zara glanced at Jack, who was trying not to laugh. "I made the mistake of thinking humans were easy targets. They're not. Take my advice if you're planning a life of crime, pick literally any other species to rob. Humans are way more trouble than they're worth." The young Voltorian left looking thoughtful. Maybe they'd make better choices, maybe not. Either way, Zara had done what she could. "You know," Jack said as they walked out together, "you never told me who hired you for that initial job, the one where I caught you." "No," Zara agreed. "I never did. Professional confidentiality, even for jobs I didn't complete." "Fair." Though I hope whoever it was learned the same lesson you did. What lesson is that? Jack grinned. Never underestimate humans. We might seem weak, but we're stubborn enough to turn weaknesses into strengths and mean enough to make you regret testing us. That's not weakness. That's the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Zara laughed, the sound free and genuine. Took me being caught, humiliated, and reformed to learn that. But yeah, you're right. Humans aren't weak. You're absolutely terrifying. Lucky for the galaxy, most of you use that terror for good. Most of us, Jack agreed. The rest become security consultants who catch overconfident alien thieves. Best thing that ever happened to me, Zara said sincerely. Getting caught by you. Second best, Jack corrected. Best thing was choosing to do something better with your life after I caught you. That was all you, Zara, all you. They walked out into the station's crowded corridors, two beings from different species who'd found partnership in the most unlikely circumstances. And if anyone watching thought the human looked weak beside the taller, stronger Voltorian, well, they'd learn the same lesson Zara had. Humans weren't weak. They were something far more dangerous, endlessly adaptable, impossibly stubborn, and absolutely unwilling to quit. And anyone who forgot that was in for a very educational experience.